We're on vacation and I'm making 5 desserts for 30 people for 5 days. So that's what this is. Today is Peach Cobbler Day, and I'm going to be showing you all the desserts I'm making to feed everybody. These are kid-friendly desserts. They're easy and they're budget-friendly. My whole budget is under $100, and I actually got it under $90 for the entire trip. So let me show you what we're doing. So the key to this was really the prep work. And as you can see, I am in my kitchen and I am starting to get all of my ingredients together. I'm getting my cereal, my marshmallows, my cookies, my brownie mix, and my recipe cards together. And I'm just starting to get all of that together so I can get everything. And you can see I have some vanilla, and I'm pulling out some glass jars that we have saved and cleaned out. They're clean jars that we've washed and put together, and I'm pulling everything out of my pantry that I already have. So I've pulled things from my pantry, and what I'm doing is I'm actually going through and I'm going to go ahead and pull things from my pantry that I've bought on sale, like our oil that I've gotten for 26 cents an ounce. And instead of buying oil while I'm on vacation or taking more oil than I need, I'm actually going to take the exact amount of oil that I need for our brownies. So I'm going to pour in the oil into this, I think it was a salsa jar that I have cleaned out and used. I think I've used this jar a few times. And I'm going to pour it for all 3 boxes of these brownies for that day, because this oil is going to be fine. It's going to be perfectly fine for this trip. I'm going to seal it up and I'm going to write on the jar what this oil is used for. And I'm going to do this for the entire process. And this worked out really well. I didn't have any breakage. I didn't have any issues. I packed everything really well because, and these jars are disposable because these were salsa jars. So I was able to toss them and throw them away. And you can see I pull out another jar as well because I'm going to get some extra oil to actually put into our pans for later, to grease pans as well, which actually helps quite a bit. So I'm going to get the little bit of extra oil into there to actually grease pans later, and that does help as well. So I'm thinking about this for the process of making sure I have every ingredient I need. I don't need to make emergency trips to the store that I don't need to take. You can see I have some chalk markers here. These are metallic and they are great for writing on glass because they don't rub off. They do not rub off. They're wonderful for writing on glass just for this reason, because if you're not washing them, they don't rub off. So I'm labeling everything on the glass so I know exactly what it's for. And Aaron can tell what it's for as well. So I'm writing everything on there. And I have all my ingredients together. So the brownies are done. The only thing I have to get for them is eggs when I get there, because traveling with eggs is a little bit harder. But that's really not that bad, all things considered. And I get out my big bowl, and I'm going to start getting my dry mix for the peach cobbler together, because I can go ahead and get all of that dry mix together and have it ready to go. And this is where you can have some real savings and also time savings as well, because this is like the hardest part of baking. Getting all those ingredients together, pulling it all together when you're there. I can go ahead and do all of that on the front end and be done before I even get to vacation. So it was all about the prep work before I even got there. That's what saved us so much money. It's so much time, effort, and energy. I had all of it done before we even left the house. Everything was ready to go. It was all in jars. It was all done. It was ready to go. And all I had to do was throw it in a bowl, in this exact mixing bowl, and I was ready to go beforehand. So as you can see, I'm putting in my baking powder, my flour, and I'm going to put in the sugar as well. I'm going to mix it up, and I'm going to do the exact same thing I did with the oil and some powdered sugar that I had used for another recipe. And I'm mixing it all together, and we're just going to go ahead and get all of this together, mixed up and ready to go. And again, prep work is what is key. And I'm pulling all of this from my pantry because I know I could get it cheaper here than I can get it at a beach town, which is probably going to cost me much more because prices are going to be more expensive at these grocery stores. I'm expecting them to be much more expensive at these grocery stores. So let's plan on using what I have at the pantry and using those costs versus actually going to those grocery stores there and getting much more expensive items and having that extra stuff to lug back home. that's kind of how I was thinking about this and using exactly what we needed. And I did this recipe times 4 for the batter. So that's how I looked at this one. And now I'm going to go ahead and get it put into those jars after I get it fully mixed. And I have a funnel and everything that I need. And I think it took us 3 jars for 4 batches. And I just used Prego jars. These worked out really well. It held the batches, and you see I labeled the jar for the 1 cup, and I did this on purpose. I did this so I wouldn't have to take a 1 cup measuring cup. So I had to take a teaspoon, I had to take a wooden spoon, because I knew I wouldn't have access to those while I was there. So I knew I wasn't going to have access to those. I also took a ladle, and I'm glad I did, because I didn't have access to that either. I didn't have access to a measuring cup. So I'm so glad I had the forethought to actually measure out what 1 cup looked like in that glass jar, because I needed 1 cup of milk per recipe. So I was able to do that 4 times inside of that glass jar. And I was able to get my 4 cups of milk inside of that glass jar. It worked out really well because I had that forethought beforehand, before I actually started this process, and let the jar dry to get 1 cup of liquid to see where that line actually was in the jar. Just a little bit of prep work can make it so much easier and so much less expensive. And I will tell you, we had a lot less stuff we actually had to take home after doing all of this prep work. And it does seem a little messy, but these are voluminous, but they tap down, they shake down, and they do go into the jars pretty well. And like I said, it was just under 3 jars. They weren't even 3 full jars whenever we actually got to them. And they ended up filling up pretty well, because we did end up getting them all in there. And these recipes were all very kid friendly. That was sort of my focus whenever I made this meal plan. I didn't focus on anything but the kids, because we had a lot of kids to feed. And I was like, I'm looking at this through the funnel of, I want to make sure the kids are happy more than anybody. So what will kids eat, and what is economical and fun for them to eat? And that's kind of how I looked at these recipes. And I focused on what they would like to eat and enjoy. And that was kind of how I went with this. And it turned out really well. Everybody really liked everything, and the kiddos really, really did enjoy it. And I think the adults enjoyed most of it more than the kiddos did, actually. So it worked out really well. And I also made sure to take pictures of any of the recipes I was concerned about on my phone, like the peach cobbler, because if I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to remember each of the steps, I took a picture of it on my phone. So I would have that in my head ahead of time. And I could pull it up on my phone at any time, just so I would have it. And as you can see, I'm writing that down. So let me know in the comments below, what is your favorite, recipe that you like to use when you're going on vacation? And if, this resonates with you, if you're like me, you're prepping as you go to on vacation, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, because we do this all the time and we're always giving new frugal content. And as you can see, now we're going into our dessert for Friday. Now, I prepped this at home the day before, because we were making cookies that I knew I was not going to feel up to cooking any desserts on Friday after traveling. So I made two sets of cookies. We did an oatmeal cranberry cookie that turned out absolutely amazing. It was so good. And we also did a chocolate no-bake cookie. Now, these cookies turned out to be very economical, and I did big batches of these cookies. I did around 2 batches of the oatmeal cookie, and I did 3 batches of the no-bake cookie. And the no-bake cookies turned out to be about $10 for the 3 batches. And the oatmeal cookies turned out to be $13.50. And I'm going to tell you something. There were so many cookies. They were eating on these cookies the entire trip. Everybody was eating on these cookies the whole trip long. There were just that many cookies, and they were that good. I kept getting compliments, like, we've been eating on your cookies all week. They're just that good. And
And my dad, he was, like, so upset because he thought that that the no bake cookies had disappeared. He's like, "The no bake cookies had better not disappear because 'cause they're one of his favorites." And I knew that the kids would love those, but the oatmeal cranberry cookies, they just turned out really good. I think if you cut the sugar and added a little bit more oatmeal, they would be a wonderful breakfast, cookie as well. Aaron and I really like those. We actually like those better than any of the others. But this was really great because they traveled really well. And that was important to me because I needed something that would travel well. It tastes good when I got there. And that's what I was thinking about. I needed something that was cost efficient, would travel well, it tastes good when I got there, it would kind of satisfy everybody's palate. In case they didn't like the chocolate no bake cookies, they should like the cranberry oatmeal cookies. So I kind of had options for both sets of people, just in case, because this is 30 people. You kind of can't satisfy everybody's taste. So I had two sets of options for everybody just in case. And I used Ziploc baggies for this. I did not use like plastic containers because I didn't want to carry things back and forth home. Absolutely didn't. I didn't want to wash. I was on vacation. I was like, I will use Ziploc baggies. They can be tossed, they can be thrown away. I'm cool with that. That's just fine with me. We'll toss them after the fact. So that's sort of how we did it. I had 2 full-gallon bags of both, and I made the cookies pretty good size, especially the no-bake cookies. They were actually quite decent size, rather large. And, like I said, the little ones really ate those up. And then we moved to these Rice Krispie Treats. I'm telling you, I've never seen Rice Krispie Treats gone so fast. Lord, the amount they just disappeared off the plate. The Rice Krispie Treats, I did 3 batches of these, and they ended up costing us about $9.57. And I really had to get in there and work with this one, because I'm on vacation. I don't have my normal tools, so I actually ended up having to get in here using my hands. You can see I'm using some pans I got at the Dollar Tree, and my hands are clean. But these worked really well, and they set up really firm. Aaron actually told me that I had messed them up, but they were a huge crowd pleaser. Absolutely a huge crowd pleaser for everybody. And then these are just basic brownies. And the brownies were probably one of the cheapest meals that we had, the cheapest dessert. Everybody loved them. And they came out to be $7.37 for the desserts for 3 boxes. And they were so good, they were also gone. Now, the fluff, I think it was probably the biggest crowd pleaser. And it was probably one of the most expensive desserts. It was about $20.90, and I will tell you, it was devoured as soon as I took it out. It was gone. It was absolutely gone, but it was very, very good. It was a cookie fluff. It was like cream cheese, Cool Whip, a little bit of powdered sugar, and some cookies that I had gotten, and everybody kept raving about it. They just could not believe that such simple ingredients made such a good meal. And then here we have the peach cobbler. It's just a basic peach cobbler, very simple. It was probably the most complicated dish that I made. And even that, it wasn't that complicated. I was able to keep it really simple, and because of all the prep work I did at home, and it was just a really easy, simple, and everybody enjoyed it quite a bit. The total cost for the peach cobbler came into about $24.52, and that is because of the ice cream. We needed quite a bit because there were so many people. That was what cost so much, but it was worth it, and it made it taste so much better.
So that was all of our desserts that we had for vacation. We had a lot of crowd pleasers. I will tell you that fluff was devoured. So were the Rice Krispie Treats. I could not believe how fast those Rice Krispie Treats were eaten. I couldn't believe how quick they were gone out of the pans. Like, we were talking chunks out of the pans. I was expecting more leftovers of what we actually ended up having. So I was a little bit shocked. But they were very much crowd pleasers. The kiddos loved them. The adults loved them. Everybody loved them. And we stayed under $100 budget. We stayed under $90, around $86 for the entire trip. So I was very happy with the entire thing. Aaron was too. So we were on vacation. We got to enjoy the beach. This was a very easy meal plan for these desserts. And we got to enjoy the beach, the pool, and everything else while we were at it. So we will see you at the next one. And thank you for joining us on The Katie Couple, where we work hard, live simple, and enjoy our fruit life. Have a great day.